So, Murray, what brought you into the field of AI and machine learning?
Well, I've been in the field of AI for a very long time, really, and I guess what first got me interested as a kid was Isaac Asimov's robot stories. My father gave me those stories to read, and when I was a kid, I wanted to kind of be like the robot scientists in the Asimov stories. But then I did computer science as an undergraduate degree in the 1980s, and I was always interested in artificial intelligence, and I've been working in that area more or less ever since, but different aspects of AI.
Yeah.
And I certainly got very much sidetracked into neuroscience for a very long time. So a lot of my work has for a long time was in symbolic artificial intelligence. But I became a little bit disillusioned with where that was going, because I had this science fiction view in my mind of what AI was ultimately going to produce, and the symbolic approach to AI didn't really seem to be getting anywhere. So I sort of started to get more interested in the brain and in neuroscience. So I spent about 10 or more years looking into the brain and building computer models of aspects of the way the brain works. But now I'm getting more back into more classical artificial intelligence again. So my trajectory has sort of come around in a circle a bit.
And so if you consider that trajectory you've had in your research direction throughout your career, what are some of the key things that you've discovered, perhaps unexpectedly, throughout your career?
Gosh, that's quite a tricky question. In a funny way, some of the discoveries are negative ones about what things, what approaches haven't worked very well, so I think sort of understanding the limitations of symbolic artificial intelligence and what some of the key areas are. Where we really want to go, those are the sorts of things, quite high level things. So for example, at one point I sort of realized that to understand human level intelligence, we really needed to understand creativity and cognitive flexibility. And these are the kinds of things that we really don't know even now how to put into artificial intelligence. So I got very interested in understanding what the basis for some of those things were. And then I started to see links with consciousness and with certain theories of how consciousness is realized in the brain. And so seeing some links between some of those different topics is really, has been really exciting.
And so when we're considering those different fields of research that are sort of coming together towards this broader goal of solving intelligence and building general AI, how important has it been over the years to see this interaction, and are there some fields that should come into the dialogue that are perhaps not in it?
Yeah. I mean, I think interdisciplinary work is actually really, really important, and if we really are going to one day achieve artificial general intelligence, I think bringing in neuroscience, bringing in psychology, and philosophy as well are very important, and physics as well. So I'm quite often asked what the best background is for people who want to work in this kind of area. And of course, computer science is a good background, but physics is a really very good background as well, because you have the right kind of maths for dealing with the sort of statistics you get in machine learning, for example. But my feeling is that the kind of machine learning that's going on at the moment and that's very popular is a very big part of a possible answer to the whole AGI puzzle. But I don't think it's the whole answer, and I think that's why keeping an eye on lots of other disciplines is very important. Neuroscience, psychology, and bringing disciplines together is vital, I think.
And would you say it's important to always keep in mind where we've been with the field, the various ups and downs during the past 50 or so years, or is it also quite valuable to have a completely fresh perspective, for example, from an individual who's picked up libraries in the open source world, translated from a different career, and might not understand all of the background and trials and tribulations that we've been through?
Yeah. I think both things are really important, and the best kind of team is going to involve both sorts of people. It's going to involve people who've perhaps got a long memory of the history of AI and some of the dead ends that we followed, and not just the dead ends that we followed, but things that maybe have been dismissed as dead ends, but have got all kinds of little important nuggets of expertise and techniques that shouldn't be forgotten, and maybe at some point need to be brought back into AI. So having people who've got that long memory, so that I sort of fit into that category, who've got a kind of long memory, I think is really useful. Of course, I think I'm useful, but it's also, there's nothing better than having a sort of young minds and minds that come from adjacent disciplines to come in and can really tear up the rule book and suggest something completely new. But I think the best thing you get is when there's a synergy between those two kinds of forces. You have some people who are bringing completely new ideas and don't know about the rule book and will tear it all up, and then you have other people who are saying, that's a great idea, and that reminds me of this technique from the past that maybe we can add to that. So that in a way, that's where I'm working right now. Is I've been very excited by the new directions that that young people have taken the neural network field in. I think that's really exciting, and the kinds of novel neural network architectures that people have been working on, taking it in really fresh new directions, and that's terrific. But I also think there are a lot of really valuable ideas from the past of AI, from symbolic AI, that we can bring back and that we can unite with some of those new ideas. And so that's what excites me most at the moment.
And then when we consider the different research avenues that your group is pursuing, what's the one that you're most excited about if you'd have to pick one? And what are the advantages of that direction for the current problems that we're trying to solve for?
Yeah. So certainly I'm very interested in reinforcement learning. I think reinforcement learning, in a sense, is a sort of fundamental framework for intelligence on a very high level. I'm very interested in deep reinforcement learning, so the application of deep neural networks to reinforcement learning problems, and in that framework. So I think that's a really exciting area to work in, and of course we've seen a lot of successes in that area recently. But where we're working is in bringing ideas from symbolic AI and ways that you can use symbolic reasoning and adding them to a deep reinforcement learning framework. So the kind of architecture that we're working on has sort of two components. It has a neural backend which tries to understand in an unsupervised way the statistics of the raw data and turn them into a high-level representation that can be then used by a symbolic front end, which has much higher powers of abstraction in many ways than a normal neural network, and allows us to do all kinds of high-level reasoning processes as well. So that combination is the combination that's exciting me most, and what I was talking about here.
And one of the important benefits of having that hybrid architecture is interpretability of the models that you're deploying, especially when we're considering problems where the fault tolerance is extremely low, or we need to be able to explain how these networks are working, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely right. And certainly in the good old days when symbolic AI was a dominant paradigm, then that was one of the arguments that people would advance about the benefits of it is that a symbolic AI system could explain its reasoning processes in a humanly comprehensible way, and so our approach does inherit that advantage, and certainly if you've got a system where it's taking an important decision, and maybe you've got somebody who is accountable for the decisions that their AI assistant is making, then they want to be confident that there are reasons that they understand that justify the decisions it's taking. And especially if it's a safety critical system, or if people's lives are at stake, or well-being, if it's who should have some kind of medication, or then you don't really want a black box there that's just saying, oh, do this, take my word for it.
Yeah. And then when you consider real-world applications, are there some commercial ones that you're pursuing or that you're more excited about? And are there any collaborations that you're embarking upon between your group and bigger corporations or startups, or are there similar institutions?
Well, I confess that I'm most interested in the big theoretical questions and understanding the kind of fundamental technological challenges of AGI. But I am quite interested in one of the applications in areas that I'm most interested in, although I'm not applying these techniques directly to it, is personal assistance. So I think personal assistance is an area that's really going to blossom in in the next few years, and where increasingly sophisticated AI is going to be really, really important. So you want to increasingly feel the presence of something that really does understand what you're talking about. And so when you use a word, I mean, if we just look at the objects that are around us in this room here, and you and I can talk about the cups and the table and the little glass of flowers and the cameras and the microphones, and we really have a much deeper we have a real understanding of how all of those objects relate to the things that we can do and relate to each other, what we can do with them, and that's what makes a conversation about those things meaningful and useful and so on. You just don't get that feeling with today's generation of personal assistants, and it's because they're very shallow in the way that they work. So I think that the most important application of AGI-like technology as we get more and more sophisticated is going to, one of the most important areas is going to be in that area of personal assistance where you have a much more convincing conversation, and it doesn't suddenly say something that makes you realize, he obviously has no idea what I'm talking about.
And how important in the development of that kind of solution is early interaction with the general public, and sort of integrating the way that they would like to see a solution be created, such that you don't build something that will eventually not hit the expectations of people, as we're living in an environment where the expectations for AI are so far beyond what we can potentially deliver to today.
Yeah, I think it's very important for any startup or corporation working in this space to sort of manage the expectations of the public, and I think that's sometimes very difficult to do because people naturally leap to conclusions about the capabilities of an AI system which are really way off the scale. I think it's the way our brains are built, and we naturally want to see intelligence out there in, especially when we hear something talking, you hear a voice and you impute intelligence to that thing, and we do it far too readily. And so it's all too easy to persuade the public that there's something much smarter there than there really is. And the difficult trick is to make people realize that there might be something that is actually really cool, but it's not quite human level intelligence, and you shouldn't treat it as such. So.
And so, given all the excitement in the area, are there some tips that you would give to people who are keen to get involved if they perhaps don't have a traditional training in computer science or machine learning, or come from a different field like neuroscience? Is there any advice that you would give to somebody who's starting afresh?
So if there are people coming into the field who are sort of getting into startups, and then I think the vital thing is to really educate yourself. And fortunately, there's an amazing repository of educational tools out there. So some people have produced some wonderful tutorials and blogs that can really bring you up to speed quite quickly. And it's quite a challenge to be able to present some of these complex ideas in ways that are digestible. But there are quite a few people out there who are good at that and have managed to do it. Whereas if you read books and papers on this kind of stuff, quite often you hit the quite difficult maths right away. But you don't have to. You can actually there are actually intuitions that you can convey. So people should educate themselves, I think, and find the online resources that help to do that. And then I think one of the very difficult things for people coming into this area is there's a bit of a supply. I mean, they also need to hire expertise at different levels. Yeah. And there's a supply and demand problem now, because the demand suddenly exploded for expertise in AI and in machine learning, and the supply can't keep up with it. So it's kind of difficult, but I think startups really do need to find proper AI experts who can sometimes damp down their expectations or say, well, it's a bit unrealistic to think that you can build something that does this, but we can do something like this, which is pretty good, you know. So that's the sort of thing that they should be looking out for, I think, that kind of expertise.
Yeah. And because you have a lot of involvement in academia, do you see that students are much more impatient to enter the real world and work on problems that they face in everyday lives, or are they still quite dedicated to doing advanced degrees and then potentially leaving? Is this whole idea of dropping out, is that still particularly popular? Or
well, I don't think we really see people dropping out, especially not at the undergraduate level. So I think undergraduates are still very keen to finish their degrees, but so I work in a computer science department. We have a lot of close links with industry. Our 4-year students go and do industrial placements as part of their degree for 12 weeks. And so that's an invaluable experience for them. So they're all very keen to do that, and that kind of gives them a springboard into industry. But people finish their degrees. I think everyone recognises it's a good idea to finish your degree and not drop out, because it's only a year maybe that but I think we are seeing a bit of an effect at the postgraduate level, because there's a great temptation for really talented people, if they get the chance, to jump ship right after their degree and not do a PhD. Where they might have done a PhD in the past, they might be driven by intellectual curiosity. So it's not so much that they're going after the money, but nowadays they can pursue their intellectual curiosity in a research lab, like in a Google or Facebook or Microsoft research lab. So there's a great temptation to do that. So we have to think of ways of holding on to those people, or maybe having part-time PhDs, or giving them something that they don't get. I mean, maybe there are certain different kinds of avenues of intellectual curiosity that you can pursue in academia that you can't pursue still in industry. But it is a challenge for us.
Do you see that that academic institutions are going to evolve in some way as they become informed with the successes of in the past Fairchild Semiconductor and Bell Labs, and today FAIR and DeepMind? Is there some structural changes that you think academia should be adopting to make sure that this brain drain isn't a problem anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that that some of these top labs, I mean, they very much respect academia. So they very much respect PhDs and the kind of research that goes on in universities. So it's not like they're trying to wipe us out or anything. So I think there is room for more kind of collaborative work and more kind of collaborative part-time PhDs and so on. There are always issues to do with intellectual property and things like that you have to negotiate. But I think that's a good way to go, is to have more PhDs where people spend some time working in a industrial research lab and some time working at Imperial, that kind of thing.
Great, thanks so much.
Thank you.